U.S. retail sales fell more than expected in December as high inflation and rising borrowing costs weighed on consumers. But our next guest still feels somewhat optimistic about the industry in 2023, confident that big box stores like Walmart and Costco could weather a recession or slow down. Now, for more, let's bring in Jan Rogers, Kniffen, Worldwide Enterprises CEO, Jan Rogers. Kniffen. Jan, it's always great to see you here. Let me start out with the numbers today, what they mean in the context of this economy. Negative 1.1% for December. That's following negative 1% in November. The holiday season maybe not quite what it was cracked up to be with all the discounting.
Well, the holiday season was okay. The holiday season looked more like a normal year than it did in 2021 or 2020, because it looks more like 2019, where you have normal discounting. You see some pressure on gross margins because the consumer's being a little more particular. Last year, you could put anything in front of them at any price and they would buy it because they were definitely convinced that it wouldn't be there if they didn't buy it, and they wouldn't have what they wanted under the Christmas tree. This year was more normal. So, the retail sales were up 6% year over year, and any other year in history, we would have thought that was fabulous. But given the inflation rate, we don't think it's fabulous. We think it's just okay. But inflation in discretionary retail didn't run anything close to 6%. So it's okay if you're a retailer that I deal with. It's not great like it was in 2021.
Looking at some of the areas month over month that we did see the biggest declines, and some of them should probably come as no surprise. Gasoline stations going down by about 4.6% month over month. But then you look at some of the other categories where you saw a massive decline in department stores. And so how does this kind of tell a different story among retail, even where at some parts of retail that are more grocery based and, of course, more necessity based versus discretionary, they might see even more of those consumer dollars continue and perhaps even be able to capitalize off of some rotation of those dollars out of department stores?
Well, it just depends on who you're selling to and where your life lives, right? Because if you're a department store, you're selling to the upper 60% of the economy. And if you're a grocery store, you're selling to everybody. And so we have certainly seen compression in the bottom two quintiles of the economy. They've had less money to spend on stuff other than gas and groceries, but they're getting some relief on gas right now. So in general, grocery stores inflation probably ran 12% last year. So it depends on where you were in the economy. But if you just look at it across the board, it was very tough if you're in home goods because people weren't trading homes and they weren't buying home goods because they'd been buying home goods for 3 years. They weren't buying electronics. That was tough. But apparel was actually turned out to be pretty good. Accessories turned out to be pretty good. That space, jewelry, things like that, shoes, were things people wanted to buy to go and do things and go out and travel. And travel was really great, of course. So it just depends on what the consumer wanted to do. Where in 2021, all they really had to do, and in 2020, was to buy stuff. Now they can go and do things and they can travel, and they couldn't do that before. So the money's moving that way, and then they're getting pinched a little bit by inflation. But all in all, the consumer's pretty healthy. When unemployment's below 4% and JOLTS, the jobs available, are above 10 million, most consumers believe they're going to have a job. Even if they do get laid off, they believe they can get another job, and they believe they can get a job making just as much or more than they were already. And we're seeing wages still rise in the 5% plus kind of range. So right now, the consumer looks fine for 2023. That doesn't mean it's going to be a great year like it was in 2021, where there were no markdowns and everybody needed everything and they had plenty of money to buy it with. It's going to go back to looking like it always did. If you've got the right stuff and you can offer it at the right price and you can keep your expenses under control, you'll be a good retailer. If you can't, then the consumer's going to get over on you and they're going to say, I'm not going to buy that unless you mark it down 50% instead of the 30% we want to mark it down. So I think 2023 is very likely to be the first normal year unless we do have a hard landing or unless we have some exogenous event that we're not expecting. Yes. So it's going back to real retailing, where the winners will be people like Walmart and Costco, like you just mentioned, or it'll be people who are in the right place at the right time, because Western wear is going to really be big. So Boot Barn can do well. Levi's can do well, Wrangler or Contour, who owns
I want
Wranglers,
to get
can
to
do well.
I want to get to some of your 2023 predictions here. One of the themes running through your notes here is the importance of brick and mortar. It's not going away. The rise of digital continuing to rise, but you're writing some specific things, and especially notwithstanding the fact that Amazon is so much retrenched from this space.
Well, Amazon really is getting outpositioned at the moment by people like Walmart, who are doing all the things Amazon does and have 5,000 stores to do it out of. Amazon's retrenching on stores. They're basically getting out of the brick and mortar business, and they're going to go back and play only in the online space for all practical purposes. And they're going to live off of AWS and other components of their business besides just retail selling, where all of the major retailers, well, even the minor retailers, have all learned that they're going to sell online, they're going to sell at the curb, and they're going to sell in the store. So as long as that's true, they're starting to regain some market share. But the market share is not going to the brick and mortar stores. It's actually going marginally online every year. Even last year, where we should have had a huge recovery in 2022 in the stores, online still gained a little bit, and it's going to gain more percentage-wise in 2023 as things normalize. So online's still winning, but stores still do, 78% of the business. And they're going forward for a while. And if you can run the store so that you can be very efficient and you can use it as a distribution center, because everyone is turning their stores into distribution centers, then you can be much more efficient and you can be closer to the customer. You can reduce your last mile delivery costs, and you can compete with Amazon. And for 20 years, people had a really hard time competing with Amazon because Amazon didn't try to make money in that side of their business. They just tried to drive volume. And they were a very, very difficult competitor.
Yeah.
Today, we can compete with Amazon.
Jen, one of your other top predictions, just while we have you, and we only got about 30 seconds here, I've been tracking and trying to keep tabs on what the new hype beast is of yesterday, today, tomorrow perhaps. But you think that Western wear is going to take over the world. Break that down for us.
It's going to briefly take over the world. And why is it going to take over the world? It's courtesy of Paramount. Paramount Plus basically came out with Yellowstone and 1883, which was the spinoff, the prequel to Yellowstone, and 1923, which is another prequel to Yellowstone. And they're the most popular things on television. So people who would never wear Western wear are wearing it. People like me who have always worn it are wearing more of it. And even fashion videos and things are featuring Western wear. And this really started about 10 months ago, maybe a year ago, and it should last about 3 years. So that's really good if you happen to be Boot Barn or Levi's or Contour that I mentioned a while ago, or Tractor Supply that sells lots of Carhartt, because it's not just Western, it's also outdoor looks. And we're seeing that take over. And if you haven't been invited to a Denim and Diamonds party, you will be. And you'll have to wear boots and Western look. And that's just where we're going right now. Everybody wants to be Beth Dutton. Everybody wants to meet Beth Dutton in a bar, and everybody wants John Dutton to be their dad. And that's going to cause Western wear to be great.
All right, Jen, I'll look out for my invite coming from you. Jen Rogers Kniffen, J. Rogers Kniffen, Worldwide Enterprises CEO. Thanks for taking the time today.